Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the AstroPub. Welcome to the office hours, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Berserker1 Batman Shelley, your humble host and salty, toothless bartender here at the AstroPub. Your space bar at the end of Twitch and the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. Doom and gloom. Yes. We'll talk about that here in a moment. I'll let everyone trickle in because... Am I drunk? No, I'm sober. I'm sober and in pain. I am down one tooth. Doom and gloom. See, that's what I'm talking about, Harabek. That shit. That pisses me off. Like, to no end. We'll talk about it here in a moment. But yes, for a quick life update, my tooth shattered. It went in my face. Eating a piece of bread. Normal bread. Not bad bread, not good bread, just bread. And, oh, hold up. I will be right back. This may be we may delay here for a moment. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, chat. It was my mother. It is her birthday today. So I called her earlier and she didn't respond, but so I was talking with her for a little moment. So we're back to here. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'm missing a tooth. Astro Mom. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, she was at my sister's place. So she lives with my near my sister. So she was at my sister's place. So it's my sister and her husband, my brother-in-law, and their two kids, my niece and nephew. So this is mild. I have to bring my own hot sauce. I haven't started talking about the spicy stuff, Civ. I've been letting people kind of usher in a little bit, get a little bit of water and such. I don't know. My tooth decided to explode in my face randomly. Hold on.
You can take away my spaceship. You can take away my space suit. You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never, ever take away my space game.
Sherry Katsune just resubscribed for 26 months. Hope your medical situation is going well, Paul, and happy birthday to AstroPub.
Thank you so much, there, Sherry,
cheers.
for that 26 months of support. You're very important, Paul. We're very impressive. If any videos, this is your fault. Reese one drinking night. Shots and cheers and chat.
You can take away my space
suit.
You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never, ever take away my space game.
Keniac89 just resubscribed for 34 months.
Thank you so much for that 34 months of support there, Kaniac. You're a very important pub. We're very impressive. Mr. Any pedestrian. This is your fault. You're drinking night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. So this is, I'll start with that then. Thank you all. So one of the reasons why I can't go to CitizenCon this year is because the tooth situation is going to require 4 to 6 months. My doctor said, expect 6 months. Because what happened was they have pulled the tooth out of my face. So what was a broken tooth is now missing. And instead they've replaced it with some sort of anchor sink thing, something that's got bone in it that will actually like merge with my mouth. It was a weird feeling when they drilled my tooth. They pulled my tooth out just with pliers and then drilled into the socket with a drill. Not like, you know, but like a tiny drill. And the doc said it's going to take 6 months for them to for it to heal, and there's other processes I have to go through. And so the issue, this is the shitty issue. I wasn't in pain with it. I'm in a little discomfort right now, but it's not the end of the world. And the reason why I can't go to CitizenCon is because I have to spend my sick time that I would normally be using to like help go to Manchester to deal with the tooth. Yeah, it's the tooth. It's because of time off. I literally can't do it because I have to support my family. And as much as I love y'all, I can't take the hit of of time off and such. We don't get annual or sick leave. We get it. Yeah. I get 4 days of sick leave because it was 5, now suddenly 4 for some reason. I have to talk to my HR about that. And 5 days off a year. So I was going to spend 4 of those days off going to Manchester, which means I only have 1 left, which means I had 4 sick days left. But with the sick days, I've already taken 1 because I had to get this done. I'm gonna have to do another, at least 1 or 2 on the process of doing this. And that would leave me with 2 days if I get sick at all, which I probably would. Those 4 days of spending like minimum 4 days. If that's not taking a day off to kind of recover from it either. So it just wasn't in the cards after that. When's the first day of school? It was this week. Yeah, because I teach plague carriers. That's the other thing. It's like, I can't, like, I'm gonna get sick. Drilling into the socket, are you getting an implant? Yeah. Basically, I have no tooth, and I'm gonna get a new fake tooth in there. They were not pleased about my joke of a bionic tooth. Basically, it would have been fine if my tooth exploded 3 weeks ago. If my tooth exploded 3 weeks ago, I would have been fine because I could have taken a couple of the days off in the summer when I had the time off to get that done. I'm literally a month off from being able to do this. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pissed. Because now I also have to pay a lot more money, but you know. So to give you kind of an idea of, this is not 100% confirmed, but this is my general understanding of how the rest of the world does school. Most schools outside of the US do trimesters, where they do like September to December, January through April, like April, May, and then May or June until through July, and then all of August off. So it's like 3 months off. It's about the same amount of time that we would get that teachers get in the US overall, but it's broken into 3 chunks. So like for instance, I know like in France, basically August is gone. Like you don't work in August. And there's a lot of folks in the world where it's like August is our summer break. We don't do shit. Did my tooth explode? Am I right? Yeah. Surprisingly, no pain. It's just I bit into a piece of bread and then I didn't have a tooth anymore. How's your dental insurance? It sucks. I had the most my dental is going to pay is about $2,000 out of a $10,000 fee, $10,000 cost. So I still have to spend it was like $6,599 for a tooth. Teeth are luxury bones. Yep. Luckily, I have what's known as a health savings account. Because I haven't really had any diseases or major issues, I put in about $200 a year or $200 a month, and my school district matches that or closest to matches that, and I think I can max out about $4,000 a year total or like $4,100 total. And since I haven't done anything for like 6 years, I have a health savings account of like, well, I didn't realize I should be putting my own money into health savings account until 3 years ago, but as a result, I have like $7,000 in my health savings account. So it's tapping out my health savings account, but I will also still have like $1,000 by the end of this year still. It's really good. For those of you who don't know, health savings account, I can also purchase things like I bought these glasses on it. You can basically, it's basically, I don't know if it's tax-free. It might be tax-free, but I think it is tax-free. Anything you purchase with the health savings account doesn't have taxes. So you can get like a little reduced rate and stuff like that. So American Medical really does suck. Oh, it does. It sucks ass. Yeah, most are pre-tax, yeah. Yep. Lost all my teeth to malformed enamel. Only got removed though. No, too expensive and painful for implants for me. It wasn't too bad. There you go. If you want your disgusting vision for today. Literally no pain. Yeah, that's what I did. I invested in it, so I was actually in the process. I had $4,000 in, and then I invested everything over $4,000 into an investment account, which was run by my HSA. And I made a little bit of money off of it, not much because it's only been there for about a year. But I had to pull it all out to be able to pay for this. DJT? I don't know what DJT is. Novocaine. Yes. I didn't feel anything. Well, when the tooth exploded, I didn't feel anything. So that's with me. This is me saying I'm not going to CitizenCon because the American healthcare system is broken. And American jobs suck ass. Come to France, you'd be a very precious citizen. I don't know if I could handle France. I wouldn't be able to go to Paris at least. Yeah, I'm really lucky it didn't expose a nerve. I don't know how I was so lucky about this. There's no first con that I know of, no. I'm a Fed, and even though my benefits are above average, I do 100% think the system is broken. What do you think about this year going about CitizenCon this year? What do you think that they're going to do talk about at CitizenCon this year? Hopefully Pyro is out by then. Maybe Squad 42 release date, almost certainly. So this is where I'm going to get spicy, all right? I'm going to stream for about 20 minutes. I promised spice by saying Star Citizen fans can't stop being doomers. Y'all, calm the fuck down. Jesus titty fucking Christ. You would have thought that CIG announced that they had canceled the fucking game. They said they were going to release it in Q4. We already knew they were going to release it in Q4. Q4 is October. October through December. People are like, oh, 2025. No, Q4 doesn't, for CIG, doesn't end it ends in December. It doesn't end in March like everybody else. Like, Jesus, titty fucking Christ, calm your fucking tits. I saw morphologists being like, well, unfortunately, it's now going to slip into 2025. Fucking what the fuck do you mean, Morph? Like, seriously, feel free to clip this and send it to him. What the actual fuck, dude? You have no evidence that it's going to move to 2025. If anything, all of the evidence we've seen, because CIG, hold on.
You can take away my space suit. You can even take away my space lasers. But
it's not going to be stable, Shadowstalker.
Ever take away my space game.
Dry Khan just resubscribed for 34 months. I am calm, just want it now, lol.
He Dry Khan for that 34 months. You're a very important public, very impressive person. Very reason. This is your fault. This is drinking night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. All right, I'm back to this. Like, we know that CIG only, if CIG is showing us shit and talking about it, they're working on it. That's like the most cynical way of looking at things, other than being straight up like, Star Citizen doesn't advance shit. I hate that dialogue too. That's a So fucking stupid. CIG hasn't done anything in the ever since in 12 years. Like, go fuck yourself. Just go fuck yourself at that point. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm tired of that shit. I don't want that shit in my chat, period, because it just proves that you don't fucking pay attention. You don't have fucking eyeballs. Andrew, shut the fuck up. I'm done with this shit. Like, no, I'm done. Like, people are saying it's 3.24 delayed 4.0. There's no, we don't fucking know that. They haven't said shit. Like, it's just inventing shit to get mad at. Like, goddamn, dude. The roadmap roundup didn't literally say that. We're going to go through it again here a bit, but I'll look through it right here. With this published, we're adjusting the release window for Alpha 4.0 to Q4 2024. Alpha 3.24 and its update systematic gameplay features has required extra attention to ensure necessary issues are resolved ahead of release, which has resulted in a lengthier PTU process. Okay. While work has continued on 4.0's features and technology simultaneously, we're making this adjustment to release timing to ensure that Alpha 4.0 gets proper amount of time in testing. Where does it say that 3.24 delayed 4.0? Where does it say that those exact fucking words? It doesn't say those exact fucking words. It doesn't say that. It says it's required extra attention to ensure necessary issues are resolved ahead of release, which resulted in a lengthier PTU process. It just said that 3.24 is taking longer than anticipated. While work has continued on 4.0's features and technology simultaneously, we're making the adjustment to release timing to ensure Alpha 4.0 gets proper amount of time in testing. Andrew, have a good day timeout, buddy. I'll see you later. I'm done with this shit. It's doomer bullshit. What CIG said, I don't give a fuck, all right? Jesus, Teddy fucking Christ. It's like fucking dealing with my fucking seniors have more maturity than most Star Citizen fans do. I swear to God. It's okay. Some people constantly come on here, and I want to be fair and balanced, right? Andrew is one of those folks who comes on and says their opinion, and they almost always disagree with me on every factor, and I'm like, that's fine. It's okay to have people who disagree with your points because it's important to like keep that in mind, to understand that there are other people who have opinions, and my opinion isn't always right, and it's always important to hear what other people say. But at a certain point, it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like at a certain point, it's, you and I aren't going to agree on this fact. You're just going to say shit because you dislike the game, or you have some other thing, or you just trying to do. I don't know what the fuck why people do this shit. I don't understand this. I don't care. Or at least back up your words. Yeah, like specifically what CIG said was that it was that 3.24 is taking longer than they anticipated, that 4.0 is still coming out, but they adjusted the release timer to ensure that 4.0 gets proper amount of time in testing. What they're saying is they're wanting to make sure that 4.0 gets enough testing before it goes out. So they've changed the time so that it's from, instead of 3.24, instead of releasing in Q3, you're releasing in Q4. Does that mean that CIG lied to your face and said that 3.24 is not delaying 4.0? No, it's not delaying 4.0. 4.0 will be out when 4.0 is out. 3.24 is not blocking that. What matters is that 4.0, when does it release? When does it finally release? And no one gives a shit. Because once it releases into like Evocati, or I should say Wave 1 PTU, most people will go, oh, it's fine. And they'll just wait for it to come out. Because at that point, people are just concerned about its stability rather than its actual play, than what's the patch itself. Have you done your Tidy Whitey's, my Tidy Whitey's in Icy Hot before the show? Yes. Do you think CIG should underpromise and overdeliver to fight everything's delayed narrative? They've already fucked themselves on that. Like, no matter what they say, it's carved into stone. The problem is that CIG gets super ambitious, and Jared says 4.0 is scheduled for a Q3 release tentatively, but no one heard that. Everyone heard 4.0 is scheduled for a Q3 release. Promise. It's scheduled. It's coming out in quarter 3. That's all the people heard. And then okay access. Thank you. Like I said, I'm gonna get spicy today. I'm gonna kick some hornets' nests and start pissing some people off. Farming some drama? Yes. Click the bait has been clicked. I'm sure there's going to be a mountain of comments below this about how I'm unreasonable or I'm just a shill for CIG, and I just don't give a fuck. I'm just going to probably delete those comments. Probably won't, though. I'll leave them up because it gets more engagement, and then it gets pushed to more people, and it makes me more money. But, like, I try to be as calm and as level-headed as possible, right? I try to be like, listen, I am fallible. I'm not infallible. The jokes about Lorstradamus and that kind of stuff is more just me trying to make educated guesses. And I'm okay with having a good conversation. I'm not okay with people just coming out and being like, CIG lied to me. CIG kicked my mom.
Sounds like 3.24 PTU is revealing more game-breaking bugs than expected, and so they're pushing 4.0 back so they have more PTU time. Which is more that they're learning from 3.24 rather than 33.24 causing a delay. Do I have that right? Still want Jared to pay for my student loans like he promised. Just me, I heard it. Later ISCs are all edited as a cover-up.
Thank you for them biddies. Basically, 4.0, so I need people to understand the differences between a patch being finished and a patch being tested. And I'm going to give you an example. 3.18. 3.18 was fine. In testing, it had some problems, but it moved forward, and it still had some issues, but it was in testing for a very long time because there was a lot of things they wanted to make sure were battened down. And they got to the point where they couldn't test anymore, so they released it. 3.18, the patch, was fine. The release was dog shit. It didn't have enough testing in the right ways for it to function. So what CIG is doing is they don't want 4.0 to be 3.18. So they're saying, all right, let's give some more room for some more testing to make sure we don't push it too soon and cause everything to explode. That's what they're doing. And we know this because CIG has told us this multiple times because they're traumatized by 3.18 because their profits went. So engagement went to shit. Their profits went to shit. The developers probably felt kind of shitty and mad at the game because of how everything was fucked up, and it was basically at the peak of its like momentum flow for that year. If 3.18 had launched successfully, even just kind of minor bumps and bruises, they would have never had a problem. But it didn't, and it caused a crater, which is why they built the entire preview system in the first place, because they were afraid of using fundamental technology which might break things. And guess what? 4.0 is fundamental technology.
Them biddies.
I think is doing the right thing to make sure we don't get another 3.18.
That's basically what they're doing. And all they're doing is saying it's going to release in October, which we already fucking knew. Like, are we going to sit here and still believe that 4.0 was going to release in quarter 3? Full live in quarter 3? No. 4.0 quarter 4 is also December, so we'll see. The idea that CIG is going to release like 4.0 at the ass crack of the year is insane. I know people are used to that sort of thing, but typically the reason why that happens is because there's a big patch around October that then causes everything to get delayed, because that patch for CitizenCon and IAE takes a lot of time to get tested and worked out, and so then they have like a month to be able to like publish and build and push a patch, and they usually just like, yeah. That's why I've always been a big proponent of doing three-quarter patches rather than, or 2-quarter patches rather than trying to do 4.
Hey, a tip.
Harab, super chatted $1.46. 4.0 is transient. Polaris is eternal.
Thank you for that. The idea that because it's in quarter 4, it has to be pushed, that it immediately gets pushed to the spring is insane. It's flawed logic at best and just straight doomer thought at worst. And Morph isn't, I don't want to pick on Morph because it's not just Morph. A lot of people have that thought. Oh, quarter 4, it means that the world is ending. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, people. And this is coming from me, the guy who said, I'm afraid that CIG is going to push 4.0 before CitizenCon for marketing purposes. And it sounds like CIG is saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to make sure it gets more testing so we don't try to rush it out the door. Which to me is like good. This is good. This is a good thing. People fucking freaking out because 4.0 is coming out in quarter 4 is like, this is good. Why are you people mad? To be fair, its logic comes from five years of Pyro this year turning into Pyro next year. That is not logic, though. That's trauma response. That's CIG's been doing this, so they're going to continue to do this instead of looking at how CIG actually functions. And I beg people to start fucking doing this. They fucking don't, because no one bothers to try this, which is CIG has 3 tells. Those 3 tells of telling you exactly what's going on are the roadmap, the monthly reports, and ISCs. Sometimes the SCLs as well. So these 3 main ways you can kind of follow along development are clear indicators of what CIG is working on. Because if they don't end up in those 3 things, then they're not fucking working on it. And the more that CIG talks about the things they're working on and show off footage and show off gameplay and elaborate on details of gameplay, the more they're actually working on it. We've never been this close to 4.0, ever, because they're actually showing gameplay footage. They're actually talking about actual content that they've added to 4.0. They've been talking in other avenues about how they're working beyond 4.0, how they're looking at this 1.0 feature. Like, you can't look at that and then immediately say CIG's not releasing 4.0 until 2026 or whatever. Like, where the fuck is that logic? What you're saying is CIG has failed to release Pyro, so they'll fail to release Pyro again because they slipped one quarter. But where is Anacron? Where's the fucking where's your proof? Where's your proof that it's going to slip? You're just saying it could slip. Yeah, I could be the king of fucking England tomorrow. That doesn't mean it's true. There's more proof that it definitely will. There's more proof that it will be making it this year than there is proof against it. Man, I'm just a lot of people taking that 24-hour. Let's see. There we go. A lot of people taking that 24-hour break, I guess. I'm not playing, y'all. Yeah, it's unbanning people for 24 hours if you're going to come in with that spicy take. If you can come in with a spicy take, hit me with some proof. Not you're fucking wrong. That's not an answer. That's just an insult. Goodbye. I don't think anyone banned me for it. No? It's like troll feeding time at the zoo. As I've said before, I am entirely okay with people having different opinions than me and coming and talking to me. The problem I have is when people come in with this sort of like panicked response without any sort of kind of logic behind the thinking other than, well, CIG did before, so they're going to do again. Like, what the fuck kind of logic is that? What kind of like thinking thought process is that? Like, Jesus titty fucking Christ, if you're this pissed off, there are plenty of other games you can go hang out in. There's, like, fuck, Space Marine 2 is releasing in a couple of weeks. Star Wars Outlaws is releasing in like 2 weeks. The Mech Warrior 5 is releasing soon too. What else is there? There's like 2 or 3 other games. Like, isn't Civ releasing? Dragon Age is releasing? There's a lot of other games out there. Wukong came out earlier this week. Yeah, it's September. September's only 2 weeks away. I guess that's at the end of September, isn't it? Them biddies.
I'm resolved with SIG doing what they need to do to get it working the way they want. If it need extra testing, so be it. It is what is. Calm down. The game is SITLL in alpha.
Yeah, it's still in alpha. I haven't seen Forever Winter. It looks interesting though. Or I should say, I haven't seen beyond its initial, like I haven't like watched a trailer or anything. I guess when CIG was wrong to remove the shields from Whole Sea's cargo spindles, doing so has created an imbalance, making conflict considerably easier from an objectives focus perspective for the attackers than the defenders. That's a good take, Fishy, because I think that's a good question about whether that's the right direction. I think it is, but only because it's easier for you to run still. Like the defender can run still a little bit easier, but they also want to push players to like being that sort of defended stuff. So, haven't they talked about the Raylan coming out? No, probably not in a while. Mud Dog. Easy to be mad that bad game that hasn't released anything in the past 30 seconds. Star Citizen is literally just JPEGs, man. They haven't released any gameplay ever, man. Trust me. Fucking shit. Hey, AstroPub, Was the Maelstrom one of the things that was promised this year at CitizenCon last year? I honestly don't remember. If you go by what Chris said at the very end of the if you go by what Chris said at the very end of the presentation, yes, but I haven't gone through every single detail of the of CitizenCon. For that raid, hold on, I gotta do the right thing. Gotta do this the right way.
Steel raid, my brothers.
You can take away my space suit. You can even take away my space lasers.
No pew-pews.
But you can never, ever take away my space game.
Loken Plays just resubscribed for 57 months. STEHLRHAIN.
Thank you so much for that. They're looking for that 57 months. You're very important public, very impressive person, very pedestrian. This is your father, your drinking.
You can take away my space suit. You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never, ever take away my space game.
CMDR_Shadow just resubscribed for 8 months. WOOOOO. So good news. I figured out my internet is good enough to simulcast both you and Loken and play World of Warcraft.
Thank you so much for that Shadow Stalker, for that 8 months. You're very important public, very impressive person, very pedestrian. This is your fault. Good night.
Hello and welcome. Due to your recent actions, you have been placed in an Horizon City in the cloud streaming facility. From breathtaking gameplay changes, incredible bugs, to unmatched copium, Star Citizen is calling. Stay at the luxurious accommodations, be subjected to bad takes, and bask in the hottest garbage doomerism known to humanity until you have repaid your debts to society. Isn't that great?
Thank you so much for that 100 biddies there, Iris. Anyways, yes, welcome to Paul deciding to be spicy. Paul, my tooth is missing. I have no tooth. I will be getting a fake tooth in 6 months. And I will be getting a temporary tooth on Friday, hopefully. So, yeah. I asked for a bionic tooth. They said, they looked at me weird. Next time I go in, I'll ask if I can get, like, you know, like the one from Jaws, like the one from what is it? Jaws? The guy who, from I want to say Dr. No, but that's the wrong one. From James Bond. From Moonraker, yeah. Or can I get like a laser tooth? That just like fires lasers out.
Them biddies.
You need a tooth with lasers.
Yes, I need a tooth with lasers. I do. Freaking laser beams. The poison tooth. Remember the tooth. The tooth. Wait for it to go down, then we get the other one. See, that's, yeah, you've caught me. I actually removed my tooth to pay for Star Marine too.
Them biddies.
If your tooth is missing, how can we be sure you are telling the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth?
Because I've got more. Thank you so much for them biddies. I sold my tooth to Gazgul Uthraka, so I could afford Space Marine 2. For those of you who don't know, in the Warhammer 40k universe, the orcs use teeth as currency. Oh, hi. Also, if 3.24 releases on September 21st, that's my birthday, so it'd be cool if it releases on that date in September as well. It's probably going to come out sooner than that. I wouldn't be surprised if 3.24 releases this month. I mean, I still think it could release this week, if not next week, because they actually started to test the Blockade Runner recently. Why can't you say you got into a fight? You should have seen the other guy. No, because it's weirder to say that your tooth exploded when you bit into a piece of bread. So, someone is asking about like my thoughts on 4.0. That's kind of why I'm saying like Star Citizen fans can't stop being doomers, because come on, y'all. Really? So many people heard 4.0 and are immediately like 2027. Like, come on, guys. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, what the fuck? Like, of course, so for those of you who don't know my takes, I've always said that I thought that 4.0 was going to come out in this fall. I thought it was going to like, oh yeah, it was good. Even when CIG said it's coming out in the summer, I'm like, it's not coming out in the summer, it's coming out in the fall. As we got closer, as we've been getting closer to the fall, with the way that they've been talking about things like 1.0 roadmap and 1.0 being the focus and all these sorts of things, made me realize that what's actually happening, at least I hope not, but from what I gathered, is that CIG is shooting for a 4.0 release before CitizenCon. And of course, if they're shooting it before CitizenCon, that would put it into October, which is Q4. Today's build of 3.24 is a release candidate. Oh, did they? Did they say it was a release candidate? That's what the six. You know, Lady Space Patrol, you probably aren't wrong. That's the sad part. It probably is when the 600i is released. No, they didn't? Okay. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the last run up. So, like, there's reasons to be pessimistic about CIG. Like, CIG's obsession with 1.0, the release 1.0, that has me all sorts of concerned about what the fuck's going on. But 4.0 is the least of my concerns. I think CIG's at this point, it just kind of wants to get it out, but they want to have a soft landing instead of a 318 landing with it. No, I also don't think that 4.0, if it releases before CitizenCon, will be the 4.0 we see on the roadmap. I think it'll be everything that they absolutely need to be for 4.0, which is server meshing, pyro, and jump points, and then the things that are in between it, like the mission rework and the social rework, all the reworks they need to do to make those three function. But anything beyond that is something else. I'm just checking in. I broke the same tooth on the opposite side of the piece of toast. Dave's killer bread, to be exact. I was on a piece of sourdough for me. October seems like a small amount of time for testing when all their tech previews have been 3.22 so far. It's not that small. if they released the Evocati build at the end of this month, so like next week, so if they released 3.24 this week, maybe next week, and they released an Evocati build around that same time, even the first week of September, that would still give them from September through most of October. So that would give them 6 weeks to get the game to get it into shape. Typically, it takes about 50 days for a patch to go from first release to live. 50 to 60 days. That would be about the same amount of time that 3.24 was in testing. Well, maybe a little less. And yeah, and I there is a definite chance that CIG basically tests only the things they need to test to get 4.0 out the door, and everything else that's extra gets tossed into a 4.1 patch, which will come out sometime between October and the end of the year. There's no committed features for 4.0. They won't commit features until after Evocati. I think we're done with 4.0, or we're done with like, I don't think 4.0 is ever going to have a 4.x.x patch. Maybe for like a hotfix, but I think CIG is done doing the x.x patches because people don't see them as patches. 3.24 is just 3.23.2 or .3, one of the two. I think it's 3.23.2, but they're going to call it 3.24. And you know what? So will everybody else. And everybody else will say, that's a patch that's released. There'll be a handful of people who remembers that it's a 3.23.x patch, but everybody else is like, no, it's a separate patch. CIG understands that the naming of patches doesn't have to make sense. There is no, they're all made up, they're invented, and people have put certain amount of like their energy into something that's a, something.x, 3.x or 4.x, I guess, in the future. So they're just going to start calling all their patches by X's. We could end up with a 4.42 within 2 years. Because CIG knows that people treat it like a big patch. So why not? It doesn't, like, it's all made up anyways.
Hey, a tip.
I super chatted $6.67. Can you explain why 4.0 has been pushed back? And why is it Jared's fault?
Oh, God. I feel bad for Jared. 4.0 has been pushed back because CIG, or because Jared specifically has been spending too much money building his own personal rocket, which is funded not by backer money, but by the secret black budget of Bethesda, who've been secretly paying Jared to undermine the entire company. Because he works for the Starfield dev team. Wait, they said 3.24 is a major patch and 3.231 is a minor change. Yes, they have. But they can just make up any reason for a major patch. You push anything out, like for instance, if you pushed out engineering, gosh, what is it? Basically all the engineering stuff. So engineering, fire, charge and drain, all of those features from 4.0. Would that not be enough for a 4.1? That's a major overhaul of how we manage our ships. Would that not be a 4.1? I do like his haircut. It does, but to farm trolls. What are the main features of 4.0? So there's only 3 features that were guaranteed with 4.0. Pyro, server meshing, and jump points. Those 3 features have been the only things that have been confirmed that would make 4.0 4.0. And before anyone starts saying I'm coping or anything like that, this is something I've been saying for weeks. That I'm like, I think CIG is going to push it for CitizenCon. I think like probably the week before CitizenCon is when they'll release. And anything that's not those 3 features or connected directly to those 3 features, like the mission rework and stuff like that, can just get fucking yeeted. And that's what they did with 3.23. That's why we have 3.24. 3.24's features were all 3.23 features that they had to cut so that they could get 3.23 in for Invictus. So CIG is 100% willing to just start axing the shit out of patches to make a deadline. They've already proven to do that. Why would they stop with the biggest patch they've ever released? When's CitizenCon this year? The 20th, I believe. So October 19th is the first day. It's like 19th and 20th are the 2 days. So like the direct middle towards it's more like the end half of October. Luna, it's important to also remember that the progress tracker doesn't track, like there are parts of the progress tracker which track beyond the actual release. There are things that have released where it's released, but on the progress tracker, it still goes for several months afterwards. Because the progress tracker, as Jake likes to say, they say that the progress tracker tracks work being done, not work being finished. And just because something has been released doesn't mean that they have stopped working on it. I feel like when this game is completed, there'll be a bunch of fans who have followed the game that'll be left wondering where they go next for this type of content interaction. Possibly, though I hope that most of those fans are actually just playing the game. As it makes sense, they push it or delay it. They can present it to show like some features of 4.0, like Pyros at CitizenCon. They will already have made the decision on what they're going to show at CitizenCon right now. Like CitizenCon probably already has its lineup, at least in a rough schedule, internally at CIG, because it's not something they can do a week before. They need like months of preparing for like content. They need to capture video content. They need to get the devs tickets and hotel rooms so that they can go to the venue and they can stay there and then they can do their presentations. They need to work it out with HR. So there's a bunch of different like behind the scenes stuff they have to do. They have to make sure that it can work on the right screen and everything like that. Like I said, there's a process. It's a process to do something like CitizenCon. It takes months of preparation. So there's no way the devs are going to be dropping something at the last minute to do it. So I guarantee you there'll be very little to nothing about 4.0 at CitizenCon because it's all going to talk about post 4.0 features, probably the road to 1.0. But you're right there, Luna, that the progress trackers caveats, but almost all of the deliverables for 4.0 have their planned work ending before mid-October, some of which have already been ended and lines up with some dev comments. Yeah. Paul, can you please help me understand why they removed the item bank and replaced it with the old inventory system? Because the item bank sucked. I like the item bank. I enjoyed the idea, but everyone said it was clunky, and I agree it was a little clunky. It definitely took some time to get used to it. But that's really what they're trying to do. And they even said that they're going to go back and look at it again because they want to kind of make a better system. the one thing that you have to understand about development is that everything is developed not in secret, but inside. You have, I don't know how many people were involved in the item bank, probably what, 10 people? The UI interactions, excuse me, UI and, gameplay coding and all these other sorts of factors that play into it, probably a bunch of testers as well. They do not have the luxury to get feedback testing from fans until they've actually finished it. So they can put a bunch of effort and time into something and be like, after it's released, like, oh, this is awful. But unlike, say, something like Master Modes, which I think a lot of people are mad at, and I think there's a lot of the hardcore fans at, though I haven't seen hardcore gamers really talk about it, or hardcore PvP and combat folks. The item bank is relatively minor to be able to kind of scrap and move over. Master Modes is fine. Move on, folks. You've just caused even more, really sensational comments to happen in this video afterwards. The piss experts, yes. The persistent item system? Is that what it's called? I can't believe Master Modes conspired with 3.24 to delay 4.0 and 4.0. The problem is that in my mind, what they need to do is do the current system we have, but put it inside the inventory screen. What is it called? The drawer is bad because the drawer adds an additional step you don't need to do. But if you went into your items screen and then you had your paper doll and you had all your stuff like we have right now, but on the screen where you can rotate your paper doll and then put things over, pull things over onto yourself while you're doing that, so that you could see what you look like and then save changes, and then you just pull back out and hey, I've got all my stuff on. People will go, that's not immersive. It's they're not going to show animations of you putting your shit on. That's never going to happen. That's just too much work for not enough payoff. But most people won't notice. And it still gives the idea that you're getting your items from this item kiosk, not just from magic random bags. Do I still think? I never thought, well, I may have earlier thought that Bounty Hunting version 2 investigations make it to 4.0, but I don't think so. I haven't, when they stopped talking about bounty hunting in earlier in the year, I knew that's definitely a next year thing. Because I think the biggest issue is scanning. You can't have bounty hunting without scanning. You can't have investigation missions without scanning, both personal scanning, like FPS scanning, and ship scanning. And while they're getting worked on now, it's definitely a post 4.0 feature. No getting dressed animations, but all the shorelit animations, huh? I see how it is. Because, Iris, I'm going to say something that's awful. Don't you remember? The engine team is all German. Please don't blitzkrieg me, Germany. You did this to yourself. I don't think you even go third person with getting dressed in Squadron. German engineering. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about when it comes to toilets in Germany. I was assumed it was a Kojima sponsorship, to be fair. Yeah. When does the spicy talk start? Vastin, I've already had to time out 2 people for 24 hours. I think the spicy talk's already been happening. I'm gonna use the restroom, get something to drink so my voice doesn't die on me. But when I get back, we'll watch ISC, and then we're gonna do the thing that Iris suggested. But I'm gonna have to watch through it a little bit and gather the notes of exactly what Jared talked about at the end of last year, and then we'll watch that segment and then kind of go over each part and see if it's in there. Do I think we'll get a Tony Z panel at CitizenCon? Possibly, if Tony Z has something to say. I don't know if we'll get Tony Z unless it's an actual like demonstration in game of like virtual AI or something like that. The only thing I think is better than 4.0 will be will be necessary and stable. The thing I think that will be necessary. Okay, the thing I think will be better is 4.0 with only the necessary but stable. The problem is that everyone wants a really big update, so they can't do that. Yes, they can, and it won't be stable. It'll be fucking unstable as shit, but it'll be functional. You might have like 200 players now instead of 100. And like when I said bare minimum is still fucking huge. That's new planets, new moons, new space stations, jump point, pyro, or jump point and server meshing. That's a lot. Even if you can't even get, that probably also includes most of the new missions, because I don't think the new missions are, I think the new missions come part and parcel with pyro. That's a fucking lot of content. That's probably 3 months of content alone. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna be able to do all of that in one sitting. I'm sure someone might try it, but I think there'll be stuff that we're still finding out about pyro and server meshing in like February of next year. All right, I'll be right back.
Weapons free, y'all.
Two words. Distress bacon.
I love democracy. I love democracy.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
To democracy! Good news, everyone! To democracy!
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Drugs.
I love democracy.
Mission complete. Burrito I eat. There you go.
Two words. Distress bacon.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
I love democracy.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
I love democracy.
Mission complete. Burrito I eat. There you go.
To democracy!
2 words. Distress bacon.
Good news, everyone!
Hello, I like money.
With agua. Oh.
I love democracy.
All right. Before we get into this, we're getting some spicy content.
To
Cam
democracy!
linked me a really good post. I'm going to read it out to you. This person tweeted out, lore is bad. Lore is the art killer. Lore is for the wiki, for the database narrative. Lore strangles narrative. There is no good lore. Anything good attributed to lore, quote unquote, is storytelling breaching through its smog. One needs not only reject lore to make art that is anti-lore, art that resists being cut into data points to be put into databases, to be put on wikis and be individualized into marketable and copyrighted parts to be shuffled over. I sort of agree, but I agree in the emotional sense, not the actual sense. What they're saying is that lore can kill a story. And I agree with that. Lore can absolutely ruin a franchise. One of the reasons why I think Star Wars has taken such a fucking nosedive in quality and why people seem to be turned off by Star Wars isn't for any like political bullshit that people bring up. The reason why people tend to be turned off by Star Wars is that more and more you have to do homework to understand what the fuck is going on. Like, they love to stick their references in where it's like, oh, it's that one character from season 3, episode 2 of the Clone Wars. Isn't that cool? When, like, you need to introduce characters to people who don't fucking know what they are. Like, it's the same problem with Marvel. Like, Marvel, you have to fucking watch movies to understand what the fuck is going on. Like, that's not how you do, like, lore. Star Trek suffers from it, but not nearly as much, because Star Trek doesn't have to self-reference itself all the time. It has references, but generally speaking, Star Trek's writers tend to do a good job of the Jared thing, where it's everyone shows their first show. It could be anyone's first show. So they tend to, because they write more episodically, they definitely have to kind of put that in that. Hey, Nightcub. Also, the quality is worse than ever, except for some things. I think that the quality is okay. I think the problem we have with modern Star Wars is that it's often not given, they're not given a kind of a scope to work inside of. And they often are younger writers or younger directors who don't have a lot of experience. And some of those writers and directors become fucking great writers and directors. Like the first season of The Mandalorian had a series of amazing writers and directors, which is why everyone loved it. If you look at the Andor series, it's done by a great group of story writers, of creators. They're fantastic. But for every good story writer, you get shitty ones. So in that spiritual sense, I understand it. In the practical sense, that's fucking nonsense. Like it's made up hippie bullshit to try to justify being artsy and shit. Like basic 101 writing. If you're going to create a fictional universe, ground people's universe, ground people in the universe. If you cannot make me identify with the character that I'm supposed to identify with, then you failed. And part of that is to give people context. Give the universe you're in context. If you can't give the universe context, then no one understands what the fuck is going on. There's also a lot of people upset about the politics because people are trash. That's true. But I mean, it's sci-fi. Sci-fi at its core is political. Is typically sci-fi is a device used by writers to tell controversial stories in a way that won't upset the narrative or the general belief at the time, popular belief at the time. Like Star Trek, the 60s Star Trek was famous for doing some outrageous shit that if it was like set in a contemporary time period to the 1960s as a narrative, like, I don't know, on like a US Navy ship or something like that, there would have been fucking riots. They would have never gotten that shit on the air. Same thing with like the 90s Star Trek. Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. Oh Lord, there is some spicy stuff that would have never made it into the air in the 90s. Science fiction can be used as a great thought experiment. Yeah, it's the reason, like, people like Heinlein and Philip K. Dick just did a lot of fucking drugs. Like, they openly advocate for things which your typical person at the time would have thought is insane, but because they were just doing fuck tons of drugs and having a lot of sex, they were all cool, all for it. Babylon 5 had some spicy moments too. And knowing JMS and his work since, yeah, it was amazing that he was able to get through it. Oh my God, Paul, Star Trek is gone book. Oh, what's that meme from The Good Place? When was Star Trek woke? Like when was the first season? 1967? It's like 1967. It's like since the beginning. It's about a bunch of communists, space. What is it? Luxury space communism as the good guys. So what Paul is saying is go all in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Listen, a little bit of overindulgence is good for the soul. All right. What's my take on Orville? Good, solid attempt, bad world building. It wants to be the next generation so hard, but it does not have the it doesn't have the solid foundation that next gen had and built on. It was trying to do a new IP and then kind of fell on its face because they just copied Star Trek so much. I mean, from the beginning, it was good, but it was always, in my mind, the parody. It was always the Galaxy Quest, the TV show. And then they tried to get it more serious as they went along, which was fine, but they still leaned way too heavily on the next gen roots when they should have just, like what next gen did, grow out from it, create a different universe than what they had. It felt way too much like they wanted to make a Star Trek, so they made a Star Trek and then figured out what to do later, instead of starting off from the beginning with, this is our universe, it's like Star Trek, but it's different because this, and this. These are the universes, this is the world we want to tell, the story we want to tell. It wasn't a meme with Shatner, and the second panel of the meme was, you were there. That was probably the most well-known one, the Mob Rule one, which felt like a Star Trek series episode, where like it was like your social media credit score was the thing that determined your validity. The problem is that people say it's because of the politics, but reality is that people just don't agree or can't accept new thing and the liberty of people. Like I said, sci-fi is used to tell provocative stories in a way that makes people think. There's a reason why Starship Troopers is still on the Navy's reading list. There's a reason why Starship Troopers is probably one of the most important pieces of science fiction media we have ever had. I would put it up there with Frankenstein, and I love Mary Shelley, obviously. Like, it is so important. You do not realize how many people were influenced by Starship Troopers. We wouldn't have Star Citizen without Starship Troopers. The movie is. I'm talking about the book. The book is more important than the movie, but I think the movie is probably not as important as the book, but it's still up there. It has influenced a lot of science fiction in the early 2000s. I would say Ender's Game is good, but Ender's Game still, I don't think has ever had the impact that we think it has. I'm not going to shit on Sanderson or Orson Scott Card, but they're both in the same kind of ballpark, where they write good stories and they write good world building, but they Stephen King it. Like, they just go. And they never let themselves linger on a story too long, which is one of the reasons why I think things like 2001, why that was good is because it was or Rendezvous with Rama. Those are both books that Arthur C. Clarke really just fucking dug into, like really put their body and brain into to make work. Starship Troopers is like that. It is Heinlein's treatise. It's his personal treatise of life and how the world should work. And you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but it's his personal vision of the universe. Just like Star Trek would come out, I think later than that, with you know, the Federation being I want to say Bradbury, but that's the wrong one. Roddenberry's vision. Ray Bradbury is another great example. Ray Bradbury he never half-assed shit in his life. Ray Bradbury stuck his head into every single thing he could stick his head into because he could. That man is fucking insane. We don't talk about Ray Bradbury as much because he doesn't seem like he's so influential, but like, this is the man who wrote The Martian Chronicles, also wrote Fahrenheit 451. Like, that's insanity. Agreeing with it is problematic. It can be. I think, personally, I always thought that Heinlein was an idealist. He's just a dude who was in the Navy and then left the Navy and was very creative. He's a good writer. And he was very good at doing the kind of bridging the kind of intellectual science fiction of like Arthur C. Clarke with the popular fiction, like Pulp Fiction. He comes from the same kind of field as Bradbury does. He also wrote Pedestrian, if I recall correctly. Is that Bradbury who did that? I don't know. I know that Bradbury wrote for The Twilight Zone. like that man deserves a lot more credit than he's ever given in science fiction. I think we think about him because of Fahrenheit 451, but like the Martian Chronicles are great. I don't think there's anything that Bradbury's ever written that was bad. I think the most he's ever come out is mid. He had his own TV show, yeah. But he never has the kind of like impact. And Ray Bradbury is a great example of it. Bradbury and Asimov. Yeah, I agree about both of them. Bradbury and Asimov both come from that same field where they're both philosophers. They're philosophers who are entertainers. Bradbury wrote stuff like Fahrenheit 451 is about how it's bad to ban books. It's about how you're in a dystopian society if you ban books. Heavily inspired by, I think he was in the military. I think he was in World War II, but by his own kind of what he saw, and not he wasn't involved in, but or like around, but like the experience of seeing Nazi book burnings in World War II. It's about the dangers of censorship and how censorship can go too far. And it's fucking still a required reading for many districts in the United States, and probably a lot of around the world because of how important it is as a book. New 3.24 patch today is really solid. Could get it live Friday. There we go. Yeah. Asimov, he's published every division in the Dewey Decimal System. No shit. I wouldn't be surprised. Andre Norton, which means 4.0 Evo next week. We'll see. I still think it's possible because CIG does tend to err on the side of test. So if they can, they'll push. If they think it's in a good position for them to test for Evo for like maybe some basic builds, they might. Which was Tolkien in the trench with? C.S. Lewis, I think. C.S. Lewis was his contemporary. Tolkien was before. So you have like the fantasy authors of like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, and I want to say a couple other people. I can't remember the names. They used to have a bad book club where they would read awful books together and shit on them. As the thing. And then after World War II, you have the World War II veterans who ended up being writers like Clarke, who was a radar operator in World War II. Technically wasn't a veteran of the war, but Heinlein, who was in the Navy before the war, got injured, had to get out of the war, and then never participated in it. Jules Verne was before Clarke, or was before all of them, though. Asimov was a compulsive writer and wrote a ton of textbooks and other nonfiction in addition to sci-fi. He also died from AIDS due to blood transfusion, which is lack of screening because it was a gay disease at the time, which is total BS. Damn, I didn't know that. I mean, Asimov basically popularized our idea of robots. I've actually looked through this. So I saw a great short on this and kind of did some of my own research, which is cool. So robot is, I think it was Hungarian that it originally comes from. We didn't have the name robot. Before robot, it was simply called automaton, if I remember correctly. the term robot is from Robotnik, yeah, which is is it I think it was Hungarian or is it Slovenian? It's Czech, means slave. Okay. Yeah, and it came from that word from an author in that period, and then Asimov took that word and called it robotics. So he called the study of these artificial beings as being the study of robotics, and that's where the term robotics comes from. Asimov, a fucking sci-fi writer, invented the term robotics, which we now use for everything involving mechanical creatures. Yeah, he coined the name. I don't know if did he coin the name, but he definitely coined the laws, which became the basis of it. Robot. I wouldn't be surprised if he did the whole thing, because Asimov is insane. Yeah, Asimov and Bradbury and Philip K. Dick and Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke are all like visionaries. Like, they invented the future. Without their perspective of the future and their influence on people like Roddenberry, who was sort of a contemporary of theirs. He was younger than them, but he was like only by a couple of years. He was the one who would then take a lot of their ideas and turn them into his own, combine them with his own ideas. And so we get things like the Star Trek communicator, which is the reason why we have cell phones. all of their ideas influenced the creation of future things. Sorry, I like to go into this a lot because lore was brought up, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, so that sort of thing. Hey, Bunda. Convincing your girlfriend she's crazy or paranoid is called gaslighting, and it's a dick move. But convincing her she's a robot with artificially implanted human emotions is called blade running. It's a Philip K. Dick move. Asimov had a ton of people who actually did a ton of the writing. He came up with the ideas and stories and had them write the body and edited it to say what he wanted to say. Oh, I didn't know that. I know that a lot of his ideas around iRobot, if you've not read iRobot, it's nothing like the movie, though it is inspired by one of the stories in iRobot. iRobot is actually like 6 short stories stuck together. One of them is about an investigator investigating a crime around a robot, and that seems like was the original intention with iRobot, with what it became. The term cyberspace, yeah. Sci-fi's philosophy expressed as art, yes. That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, I'll go back to saying Starship Troopers is very influential because without Starship Troopers, we wouldn't have Gundam. I forgot the name of the creator of Gundam, but his story is that he wanted to be in aerospace engineering. So he went to school for aerospace engineering, but didn't make the cut because he didn't have the grades good enough. So he fell back on his second love, which was history. So he went to go to school for history. One of the reasons why he wanted to design, so he wanted to design aerospace. So he was really good at drawing because he wanted to be an aerospace designer. So he fell back on his love of history and then used that background of history to create space robots. Yes, we're talking about we're talking about I forgot his name. The first creator of Gundam. Okay, but is Starship Troopers to blame for 4.0's delay? Yes. Yeah, so he created mechs inspired by the power suits, the power armor of 40K of 40K. It was a little bit later than that of Starship Troopers. Tomino. It's Tomino. Tomino is the one I'm talking about. People forget that Gundam carries an anti-war message, not just bot bashing. It does the best of both worlds. Tomino does what I think, ironically enough, the director of the movie Starship Troopers. Why am I blanking on his name too? I know he's Dutch. I always forget his name though. But he perfected what Tomino started, which is sort of light parody. Because all of Verhoeven, thank you, Paul Verhoeven. Verhoeven, all of Paul Verhoeven's movies are parodies. They're all commentaries. A lot of them are based off of Philip K. Dick novels, but they're all commentaries. Yeah, Gundam is starts off with plucky teenagers and giant fighting robots, and ends with they all have PTSD, and there are multiple war crimes having happened at them, towards them, and to everyone they love. Yeah, he did RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Hollow Man, and Starship Troopers. He also did Showgirls, but the Bright Slap was born. The point being, without those without things like Gundam, which basically inspired all of the mecha fiction that we would have in the 80s. Gundam Mania blew up mecha in the late 70s and the early 80s, which then made its way to the West, where the FASA folks picked it up and began to run with it with Battletech, which then helped popularize mech and mecha fiction throughout the 80s and 90s, which led to a ton of different things, including things like Pacific Rim. We wouldn't have modern mecha like stories and mech stories without Starship Troopers. And of course, famously, Starship Troopers inspired pretty much every power armored kind of universe from there on. Fallout, 40K, Halo, Iron Man, yeah. Titanfall. Pretty much, we do not have military science fiction without Starship Troopers. Star Citizen wouldn't exist without Starship Troopers. Mecha break, yeah. I don't know. You got to be careful there, Hairbeck. Seed fans are ravenous. They will rip you apart for saying that our Lord and Savior, what's his name? Oh, the obvious Jesus parody allegory. Seed fans are wrong. Ouch. Yamato, thank you. I'm torn because I think that Seed suffers from bad characters, but a good plot. Mostly because Seed is just a retelling of the original Gundam story. Kira Jesus Yamato. Jules Verne helped inspired space travel, but I wouldn't say that he's the reason we have space travel. Not only were they contemporaries, they knew each other. Heinlein, Clark, and Asimov and Dick, they all knew each other. I'm pretty sure that Heinlein and Dick used to get high together. But because they all were science fiction writers that ran in the same circles, so they bumped into each other all the time. Famously, when man landed on the moon in 1969, Heinlein, Clark, and I think Asimov were all in the same room together. They were all on like CBS watching it live on television, being recorded, watching it go down. What's the towing and safe zones about in 3.24? Last I checked, you could still tow in 3.24 if the in safe zones if the shields were down. Yeah, Urkel. There's a recording of all of them in the same room together with I want to say one of the major like it's like that broadcast, the famous broadcast. What's his name? Oh, famous broadcast of the 60s. Walter Cronkite, I think. Was it Cosell? It wasn't Cosell. I think it was Cronkite. See if I can pull it up.
Arthur.
Yeah, it's with Cronkite.
Clark, one of my very favorite people, who has been with us at CBS for several of these missions now. And Arthur, what do you think we ought to do next? I mean, what would you like to see? The space station or Mars? Or perhaps both? Well, I guess you'd like to see both. We all like to see all we can do, but given some national priority problems.
We will see both. I think the first order priority is the establishment of an economical space transporter so that we can establish a large space station which would act as an astronomical observatory, which will tell us a very great deal about Mars and the other planets before we get there, because then with large telescopes in space near the Earth, we'll learn a great deal about these places. And also, from the space station, in the space station, we can develop the techniques of long-range space exploration.
Arthur, you've been dreaming of this moment long before many of us did. Beginning back in the mid-1930s, you were writing about going out to the moon. What was your feeling when we saw this thing happen today?
What these men have written about and done so many years before the landing of Apollo 11, I think it's worth recalling that Mr. Heinlein's book, Rocket Ship Galileo, was written in the 40s. And the film, Destination Moon, 1950?
That's right.
That's a long time ago to talk about a landing and a return.
It's been thought about for, well, the first novel written about a trip to the moon was not written by me. It was written by Cyrano de Bergerac a long, long time ago.
Nonetheless.
So yeah, this was all on Apollo 11. I can't remember. I got to see if I can find it. I remember seeing them sitting together in the same room talking about it. Like both of them crying about it. All right, time. I'm done, dude. All right, let's watch the actual ISC here. Keep going. I summoned Dad. I loved me some Art Bell and Coast to Coast. That's because I worked very late nights, and Art Bell is always an interesting folk for that one. All right, let's get this.
Game, trying to build a first-person universe of varied experiences across multiple star systems. It's no secret that Star Citizen is an ambitious game, trying to build a first-person universe of varied experiences across multiple star systems. But at its core will always be the spaceship. And the process of making a spaceship always begins with the concept artist. And we've had no shortage of greats contribute to our legacy of vehicles. From Star Wars superstars like Ryan Church and David Hobbins, to Star Trek luminaries like Jim Martin. From the art departments of Godzilla, Matrix, Blade Runner, and Dune like Emmanuel Shui and George Hull, to the dedicated CIG legends like Paul Jones and Alberto Petronio, and a whole host of folks in between too numerous to mention the origin of our space.
Hold up. Was that dub?
And George Hull, to the dedicated CIG legends like Paul Jones and Alberto Petronio, and a whole host of folks in between too numerous.
That was a voiceover dub. He fucked up the line, and he just recorded over it later. ADR, baby.
First to mention, the origin of our spacecraft are as numerous as their manufacturers. But there's one person who's participated in the birth of more Star Citizen spacecraft than any other. With more than 20 vehicles to his name so far, he bridges the gaps between manufacturers and has helped to define or refine many of their styles over the years. And in this year's special Ship Showdown showcase, we brought the prolific Gavin Rothery into our office for your chance to meet the man and celebrate just a fraction of his contribution to this project. And because I just think he's neat. Let's go.
I've got toothpaste all about. I got toothpaste flakes. I think working as a concept artist is great. I like the way I get to spend time with my dogs. I really appreciate that. I've got my dogs around me all day. I get my spaceships, my dogs, and I get to come up to Manchester and hang out with you guys for a bit. It's awesome. You gonna get it?
He's such a fucking nerd.
He has toothpaste flakes.
Beautiful.
Oh, I'll do.
That's right.
I'm an artist.
I don't say nerd is a bad thing. I'm also a nerd. I'm about to drop a fucking 30 to 40 minute fucking video on the history of the Gladius in Star Citizen. A game that isn't fully fucking released, about a ship that's barely in the game, that has no story other than written in backstory. I'm about to teach you all about the fucking history of power systems, power and cooling systems, as well as shield technology, in order to tell you why the Gladius is so good. That's a nerdy as shit. All right, that's stupid. All right, but I'm gonna do it because I've got a brain disease, so I understand that level of nerddom. Yeah, I saw this already. He talks about the.
So a concept artist is usually a human. That might change. We've seen these AIs. They're coming for us. So a concept artist is an artist who comes in at the start of a job and works to a technical brief, which is often just writing. There might be a few reference images in there occasionally. We don't really tend to work like that. We'll just get a technical brief and you've got to come there and you've just got to realize things. Usually you're working somewhat in isolation. There's base touching with like art directors and such, but like a lot of my job is me just working at home in my studio, just kind of getting on with things, having like regular touch-ins, and that sounds weird. Touching base frequently, and just pushing the design forward, basically. So I'm given a brief and a deadline, and I'm expected to metamorphosize that brief into something that can fulfill that brief and look really cool on the clock. There's a few things that make a good concept artist, really. You've got to be able to get along with people and like fit into a team. That's first and foremost, because it's more remote, so it can take longer to get relationships going with people. So that stuff becomes more important.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people need to understand. As somebody who's participated in collaborative art, not video game direction, but theater. And I think this is generally the rule of thumb when you're working with multiple people, especially when you're working with artists, are working with a bunch of each other. Sometimes you just got to punch somebody in the face. Like the threat of violence in the sense of someone who's going to throw a hammer at you at any given time means that you're going to have to be on your best behavior and you're going to have to be more collaborative. So you have to what they say in the industry is kill your children. Sometimes you have this very important special snowflake idea and you have to be willing to let it die because it just doesn't work for the project as a whole or for the production as a whole, even though you really like it, because it just doesn't make sense. And you have to, working remote, it's really difficult to build that sort of relationship with somebody who you're willing to kill your children for. I know it's dark, but that's literally the industry term. Please don't demonetize me. It's not a like lighthearted thing. It's the reason why they call it like that.
A game project particularly, there's lots of things changing in development, so you've got to be able to approach your work with a mindset of like not being too precious about it. You can do a bunch of work on things and it can all be beautiful.
It's kill your darlings, my man. I've heard it as kill your children. Everyone I've talked to says that.
And that could just completely change and you have to do something else.
And maybe that's the sanitized version, but...
Which is beautiful. You've got to just be able to wake up every morning and kind of deliver that. Whenever you see a good concept artist, you'll be looking at somebody that is able to do that and figured it out in their life. So Star Citizen is a very unique beast. I've been in the games industry for a long time. I've worked in movies, I've been around the block, I've done stuff. Star Citizen is one of those projects that's got such definitively harsh metrics that you need to fit that I've never worked on another project like it. You can look at the Millennium Falcon, it looks pretty on the outside, it looks pretty on the inside. Those two things don't go together. So with Star Citizen, everything has to fit. And I remember when I first started doing some of the bigger ships, like many...
I think your friends just opted to make it more edgy. My friends are like people who've been in the theater industry for decades. my professors who told me these sorts of things.
Years ago, that was a new thing to me because other projects don't really consider that. They'll have, once you're inside a ship, you're basically inside a magic little universe and, things can be completely different scales and people generally don't worry about that stuff too much. With Star Citizen, it's all cohesive and it all has to fit. And so when we're designing it, we'll start with the exterior. We always do options for things. So the first week of a new ship design is me doing, just blasting out options as quickly as I can. When I'm designing a ship, I work in 3D and 2D. So my actual pipeline is I do all my 3D in Maya. So I get the brief, and I go straight into 3D and just start blocking out shapes and basically sketching in 3D. I've been doing this for a long time as a concept artist, and I found that working in shapes and volume, it's just a very natural way to work. It's a sculptural medium. I always just get straight into 3D, and I don't really work from one angle to start off with. I literally work with a 3D shape and just work all around it to begin. So I work my way in from blocking 3D shapes. So this is all done in Maya. And I like to put 4 or 5 options together so that we can all have a good sit down and choose. And there'll be a range of things in there. I try and make...
Can CIG just not pronounce words? Like, I love you, Gav, but it's called Maya. I've never heard it called Maya. Do you all call it Maya? Maya who? Maya
You can take away my spaceship.
Maya.
You can take away my space suit.
You did when I worked at uni in Australia.
even take
I've
away my
never heard it
space
called
lasers.
Maya before.
But you can never
It's Maya, not Maya. It's Maya, not
take
Maya.
away my space game.
Celine Star Drago just resubscribed for 26 months.
Thank you so much there, Celine, for that 26 months of support. You're a very important pupper, very impressive, Mr. Rainy Pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. I'm just gonna start calling it Mayo. That's what that way we can kind of all agree. It's called Mayo.
Come all quite different. Quite often you'll have a favourite, but that doesn't really matter because that might not be the way the ship ends up going. And then ultimately, whichever way it ends up going, that becomes your favourite because you work on it more and it comes to life. And then once we have that kind of feedback after the first week, we'll have more of a direction and we might push forwards with a couple of designs and work a couple up a bit more. Then after another week or two, we'll nail it down to one and just keep pushing forwards with it comes to life. And then once we have that kind of...
It got smaller from concept.
feedback after the first week, we'll have more of a direction and we might push forwards with a couple of designs and work a couple up a bit more. Then after another week or two, we'll nail it down to one and just keep pushing forwards with...
If you look at it, so there's the block, right? Watch the transition. Try to get about halfway. So there we go. So you can see like this is the original concept and this is the new one. You can see the new one kind of fits inside the original concept almost. It's not a perfect one-to-one, but you can definitely see the size. Like they kind of sculpted it. Because I don't think Gav is Mr. Rotherty is a 3D artist. I think he's a sculptor. Because the way he talks about it, and even talks about it working like a 3D sculpture, he definitely is going from big chunks down to smaller, kind of smoother angles. And then the design team takes those angles and then kind of pieces them together and then puts them in.
That kind of feedback after the first week, we'll have more of a direction and we might push forwards with a couple of designs and work a couple up a bit more. Then after another week or two, we'll nail it down to one and just keep pushing forward.
It makes it sound more artsy-fartsy. I mean, yeah. Artists are artists. I am of the stupid belief that I think is very, I guess it's non-elitist, which is I believe everyone is an artist. It's just we all work in different mediums. And it's just a matter of people finding the right medium for their creativity. Everyone has a story to tell. It just matters of how you do it and way you do it.
With one direction. We work in 4 stages for the actual design.
Is poop an art if you really want it to be? That's why I think I don't like the Dada movement. Very quick brief for those who don't know what Dadaism is. It basically means that there is no meaning. People put meaning into too many things, and there's not really that much meaning. So that's when you see art that's just like poop on wall, you know, banana stuck to wall is to prove that it's not art. It's like this isn't art, but it's like you're expressing something by stapling a banana to a wall. Yeah, that's art. If you intended to do that, you put intention into that. I don't care if you don't have a meaning behind it. Other people will have meaning behind it because you did that. I almost agree, but I've met some really stupid people. Stupidity has nothing to do with creativity. People are creative in their own ways. People can be creatively stupid. What matters is how do people see themselves and how do they want to express that creativity?
And then a promo stage at the end. So we'll normally go first pass exterior, first pass
Trust me, I've seen some very stubborn learners in my time. And I will tell you, the most creative people I've ever met are students who do not want to learn. They will find every way imaginable to not learn. They put in more effort to not learn than it would be easier just for them to learn it. You know? So if someone is an artist who fights depression, would that make it their happy medium? God, it's awful. Yes.
Interior, second pass exterior, second pass interior. And through those two processes, we'll establish the look of the outside, establish what the inside needs to do, make the inside fit the outside as best we can. Then we usually have to have a second pass on the outside just to change a few things because the interior has got hard limits on it. And quite often there'll be bits sticking out and we'll need to have a second pass over the exterior just to finish it all up and just put all the nice little polish and sort of spanky bits on there. And once that's done and we know that's not going to change, we can get in there and like completely trick out the interior and finish it up. In Star Citizen, the rule of cool is a term that we use when we're putting things together, putting the art together. It's concerned with the last 20% of the design, basically. So we have so much functionality we have to put in the design, like when we're starting on a ship. We start off with a brief, it's got a whole bunch of requirements a ship would need. And first and foremost, when you're working as a
So the saying you got to try to be that stupid is real. Yes. I don't like the term, like all right, just quick because this has got a quick soapbox. Intelligence isn't what you think it is. Intelligence has been bastardized to mean what it means today. Intelligence was never intended to mean what it does now. Intelligence measures how quickly it takes for you to learn a new subject. Having low intelligence on a scale doesn't mean that you're stupid. It just means it takes you longer to learn a subject. Somebody who is low intelligence can do really intelligent things that we would think is intelligent. It's just a matter of speed. Your brain is not that different from anybody else's brain because we're human beings and we have a fucking requirement to fit in skulls. It's a matter of your experience, where your socioeconomic status, your how well you've been fostered, and like where you grew up, or like kind of education you experienced grew up, which will often set that intelligence. Some people do have the ability to learn things faster than others, but that doesn't mean they learn everything faster than others. You have different ways that people learn, and some people can learn things very quickly. I am fucking awful at math. Do not ask me to do math. I am not very good at quick maths. I have learned my multiplication tables like 7 times and forgot them all. But I could tell you details about history that nobody gives a shit about, because that's just kind of the thing that fascinates me, and I kind of gravitate towards that sort of oral storytelling sort of technique. But I'm not going to be an engineer. At the same time, I wouldn't ask an engineer to write a fucking poem because they may not care for. So it's all different. 2 times 4, 8, I think. But just because someone doesn't know math doesn't mean they're stupid. Just because someone doesn't know Shakespeare doesn't mean they're uncultured or stupid. It's just different. You just learn differently. I agree. Not everyone is creative. They may have other talents. Creativity is subjective. There's plenty of people who can be creative in different means. There's people who can build sculptures out of random household objects, which are some of the most creative shit I've seen. And they probably aren't artists in the traditional sense. People who brag about IQ scores are great, though. They make it so easy to know who to block. IQ is such a misunderstood concept. We go through a course. We go through courses. When I became a teacher, I went through a couple courses, and one of the topics was intelligence quotient, which is what IQ stands for, quotient, and where it came from, the history of it, and how we function it, and why we don't use it in education anymore, because it doesn't measure what we think it measures. It's only in the last 30 years or so, 40 years or so, that we've really started to kind of dial down on what intelligence is. And we've come up with some crazy ideas, which most of them are wrong, like emotional intelligence and, you know, learning variety. And there's lots of really crazy ideas we've tried to put, but the problem is that we're trying to put a number on something that doesn't have a number. It's mostly just designed to try to help us sort people in ways that they learn. That's the whole point of intelligence. It's a teacher's tool. It was never meant as a measure of how smart you are. I was going to say, haven't IQ tests largely been debunked? Yes, they do have some purpose in terms of, but the purpose is mostly to judge speed of learning, rather than, or like the adaptability of learning, rather than necessarily specifically like this is how smart you are. It's about if I remember correctly, the original IQ tests were produced by a French school teacher, because they had passed a law, I believe in the late 19th century, where they made universal education available to a ton of people. And the problem was that you would have people in the same schoolhouse, because this is before modern industrialization kind of school. You'd have people in their like 20s in the schoolhouse sitting next to to 7-year-olds. And you had to figure out how much do they need, because that person in their like early 20s may have never had received an education in their life, but now that they can, they're doing so. Whereas the 7-year-old has been getting regular education up to the point where they're now there. So it could be that the 7-year-old is more advanced than the person in their early 20s, but the person in their early 20s has different experiences. So how do you take all these students, break it up into who needs what, and figure out where they need to go so you can teach the right things to the right people? And that's where IQ comes from, was an attempt to try to sort people into buckets that you can then attack in terms of buckets. You can raise your IQ score by taking the test more than once. I mean, one of the factors is that we've been using IQ scores to figure out like development so long that we actually have seen that every generation has higher IQ scores. So they have to reset the standards every generation. So if you registered as a high intelligence when you were younger, you're probably in a low intelligence bracket from an IQ score. Even though you have more information, you're probably better at what you do. Kids just get smarter every generation. It's such a weird concept. Anyways.
Concept artist, you're there to do a job and you've got to fit in the project to make sure you can deliver. So I need to make sure that my concepts have got all of the things that the build team are going to need, that the players are ultimately going to want. So I've got to consider things like components, metrics, heights of handles, heights of steps, how doors work, how ramps work, angles of things. I've got to consider things like the components the ship needs, the facilities the crew need to be able to live on the ship.
Speaking of this, Gavin has very, very good 3D spatial awareness, because Gavin has to work in 3D space. And so they understand metrics and how to not just take the numbers and make it work, but take that numbers and make it work in a way that looks good, which is a rare talent.
Work on the ship. There's just all kinds of things to consider. So the rule of cool is when you've got all of that stuff done, you've got it in there, and you've got it looking cool, it fits with the brand, it looks nice. And this is where we get to use that 20% to kind of push the brand forwards, which is where the development of the ship comes from. As soon as I've got something that I want to render, I'll go into Keyshot. I'll take my mail file into Keyshot. Keyshot's a product presentation 3D package specializing in beauty renders. So I can just get in there with materials. I've done this for such a long time and on so many ships now, I've got all my material libraries set for the different brands and stuff, so I can work really quickly. and I'll get some pretty renders, some nice light, and just gives a better indication of what the ship might look like further down the road. So the 5th milestone, MS5, is promo artwork. So once we've done all the design work, and I'll have done a ton of rendering along the way to put updates on the boards, but it's all worky stuff and disposable stuff. And once we get to promo, that's when these ships get the proper setup and get the proper time and love, and then those renders from Keyshot become promo pieces, and that's all finished in Photoshop. So my favourite brand in Star Citizen is Crusader, which would make one of my favourite ships the Ares, because it's just, I love doing that. It's got that classic black and white sci-fi look. It's the Bjork All Is Full of Love music video. It's that classic cool. But I am very partial to Argo. I do like a big orange space lump.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers.
No views.
But you can never,
ever
take away my space game.
Ferriquare just resubscribed for 55 months.
Thank you so much, Ferric, for that 55 months. You're a very important pupper, very impressive, very pedestrian. This is your fault. You're drinking night. Shots and cheers and chat. Y'all, shots and cheers. Oh, my nose is getting all stuffed up. Just bought a raft in the PTU, and yeah, I really dig the vibe of it.
And the mole and the raft, I just think those, I got some little goosebumps talking about them, my children. I remember when Paul Jones and I were working on, when we first did the mole, we knew we'd got something really good when we finished the mole. It's like we got the artwork done at the end of the job and we're just like, that's a nice ship. Then when we got to do the raft and we got to push.
Wait, was Gavin the one who is Mr. Argo? Was he the one who went to Montreal and helped train up the team in Montreal? Because there was somebody who was like worked on like most of the Argo ships and ended up going to Montreal, and they joked that they were called Mr. Argo. Was that Gavin? I don't think so. I doubt it, because Gavin said he doesn't leave his home with his dogs.
Shoot forwards again. That was a real pleasure working on the raft.
Ooh, look at that HUD. Oh, oh, it's so fucking good, those MFDs. It's so readable.
I've got to say, my all-time favourite ship, I've got to say the Gladius. It's the first one I did. When I first saw the Squadron videos that came out a while back, and I got to see Mark Hamill standing in front of that Gladius and running his hand down it and being all gooey over it, I'm looking at it thinking, that's Luke Skywalker's like running his hands all over my ship. Like, good job. Life as a concept artist, it can be a little bit on the fringes sometimes, and you can feel like you're a little bit out there. But one of the things that I really love about it the most is being able to kind of run my own time. And there is an element of 9 to 5 to it. I don't have to be at a desk at 9 o'clock every morning. I don't have to commute. I get to spend all day with my dogs. I've got 2 little Westie friends, and, you know, getting my girls curled up under my desk and just blasting some music and, you know, rolling in at like 9:45 with a coffee and just getting going. You know, it's just nice. It's just got that little bit more chill than you kind of commute to the office and 9 o'clock, sit down, here we go. I mean, that can translate to like late nights sometimes. You know, there's a lot of grind and crunch. But when you're designing spaceships for Star Citizen, it's awesome. It's an awesome job and I love it. And it really isn't a chore. You know, you get your late nights at work, you put your music on, you put the kettle on, and you just get on with it. It's awesome. Time flies.
So what did we learn this week? Well, no doubt that many of your all-time favorite spacecraft sprang forth from the efforts of Gavin Rothery. That from the Aegis Gladius to the upcoming RSI Zeus, there's no doubt that he can make a beautiful spaceship. And that with his ability to span the styles of every single manufacturer in Star Citizen, we're always excited to see what he's going to do next. If that didn't get through, know that I tried.
Did he say Prowler? It's definitely a puh. Huh. It wasn't Prowler. It was like pra blah blah blah. It was like a P and then a rah. It's a 3-syllable, yeah.
If that didn't get through, know that I tried. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week. It's time to get our factional fight back on in Pyro.
It was very cool. No, not Pegasus. That you don't go bleh with Guardian. Gar is this. Puh is the other. Like the way he's pursed his mouth. Definitely was a P. Something lore. Yes. Guardian. That's 3 syllables, I guess. Garnt's ghost. Proteus. Poseidon. Yeah. Paul Shelley. All right. The new saber is called a peregrine. It could be peregrine. Y'all know what a peregrine is, right? It's a falcon, yeah. Oh. Fast bird, yeah. If I remember correctly, didn't they study some of the aerodynamics of the peregrine when they made the B2 Spirit? I may be remembering incorrectly, but I remember someone showing a picture of the aerodynamics of a peregrine and then showing the B2 Spirit bomber and showing that they almost they're like the front of the B2 Spirit looks almost exactly the same as the dynamic dimensions of a peregrine falcon. Pregnant? Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Now you're spilling state secrets. Call me the War Thunder forums, all right? I'm missing a tooth, y'all. Take it easy on me. Did you know that the bird is the word? I did now know that the bird is the word. All right. I was thinking about doing more things tonight, but my nose is stuffed up like no one's business. So I might have to call it a little early because I'm also still getting used to working. To give you context, typically on a normal sort of day during the summer, I'd have like 40 to 60 active minutes. But I'd end up with like a little over 10,000 steps. With around like 3,000, like 3,500 calories burned a day. Today alone, without me doing any exercise, this is just me walking around at work, I had 14,500 steps. With almost 4,500 calories burned. On Tuesday, when I both worked out and did school, I had over 20,000 steps. This isn't a dick measuring contest. I'm not here to tell anybody if I'm doing more or less than them. I'm just trying to give you context because I am absolutely fucking exhausted. Also, Paul is super tired from white knighting for CIG, who delayed 4.0 because they were working on 1.0. Exactly. You really need to buy a car. That would be an interesting classroom with me just doing donuts around my classroom in a car. Most of that is just me walking around the classroom. Check out Step Guy here. So it's more that I'm like physically and emotionally exhausted from work more often. Because it's not just walking around, it's walking around, talking with students, making sure, checking up on them, making sure it's good, bending down, standing up, moving. Like, I think I sat down, at most, the most I sat down for was probably an hour between 8 a.m. my time and 5 p.m. my time. Yeah. I was up on my feet a lot. Paul should get a hoverboard. It's just early in the year. I don't have a lot of time to sit down. I probably won't anyways in general. And it doesn't help that I can't eat anything because I've got a missing tooth. And so the doctor said I can't eat anything solid for a week. So I've been eating ramen and soup and applesauce, and you'll never guess that ramen, soup, and applesauce combined is 500 calories. I cannot have anything that is harder than that, and so I am calorie deficient. Drink protein shakes. I might have to. I may have to get some of that. You had a history teacher with a wall map and a couple of V and a laser pointer. Dude didn't leave his desk. Damn. A TV. Oh, a TV and a laser pointer. That's not how you're supposed to teach. I've had weeks where I've done that, where I've just sat down and, I did my best to stay around my desk. But generally speaking, yeah, you gotta get up. Another feeling, I work at a huge hotel and the average is between 20 and 25,000 steps. It wouldn't be so bad if I was eating like I would be walking those sorts of steps and, burning 4,000 calories, but I'm not. My phone died. Have a good night. Thank you, Glassrod, for hanging out. I always like history for lectures. I try not to do as many lectures. I used to when I first started teaching. I did that all the time, but I found that it's not really engaging, and you need to really engage students. So. I hate that I never did history in school, considering how big I'm into it now. It's not unusual. I know a lot of students who come into my senior classroom having fallen in love with history, you know, over their the last year of their high school career, being like, man, I wish I would pay more attention. We encourage snacking, at least on my team. To be fair, C Daddy, I would. If you didn't snack and eat on the job, your boss would be dead. I do not believe that Eric sleeps. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he just has an IV drip that's just connected to him. I don't know how half of the people function the way they do at CIG who run platform. Y'all are machines. Soylent diet like a real startup kid. Later, Herbeck. We're having the phone die here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. I'm not going to apologize for like being a little clickbaity and being a little, roping people into making things and then banning them, because I'm just tired of it. 4.0 before IAE calling it now. Like, for those of you who came in late, the whole title is because I'm tired of people coming in and seeing one thing happen and immediately assume it's the worst of the worst. And then their argument is, well, historically, and then not taking any context whatsoever for what's going on around them. Like, it's one thing to lean on history as a historian to help you set base understanding of something. It's another to use it as if it's a crystal ball that will predict all future events. Context is important. Historical data helps us build context. But historical data on, in this case, releases is incomplete without also data on how things are put together. And everyone is panicking over nothing. And I'm tired of this doomer shit that happens every time something happens like this. People either flip out and blame CIG for the fucking economy crashing, for every cancer, like case in the universe, or people are like, well, it's just CIG. They're awful at what they do. They can't predict anything. It's like, so we got to understand that CIG is going to give us something 7 years later. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's not funny. It's not quirky. It's not helpful. It's just being a doomer. I'm just tired of that shit. It's doom shit knowledge, and you know it's doom shit. You just get off on doom shit. That's why you like it. You think it's hilarious, which is why you do it. With that, I'll be back tomorrow, maybe with 3.24. If 3.24 isn't live by tomorrow, we'll do MechWarrior 5 with Loken. We'll be a little bit later because I actually have, class until pretty late, so I won't be able to get home until I won't be able to get home instantly, so it'll probably be a while before I get started. So the earliest it'll be, or the average it'll be like 7 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be a little earlier than we're doing today. But then on Saturday we'll have Captain's Table, Sunday we'll have Lore Expeditions, and I might do another stream to catch up for the missing Wednesday next week, because I should be better in terms of healing by then. See you, Doom Sage. Oh, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. If you did enjoy this, despite my my spiciness, hit that follow button. I am currently at 18,208. My goal is to get to 20,000 before the end of the year here on Twitch, and it does help that you know when I'm live if you enjoy this kind of content. We do this on Thursdays, every Thursday, or not every Thursday, but most Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So you can come join us live and hang out with us for this. And yeah, you can also join us on YouTube at youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. Make sure if you're on YouTube, make sure you did enjoy this. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content, hit the bell icon to be notified. At least I say that because you got to do it. Like, I know a lot of y'all are like, oh, I enjoyed this content. If you did enjoy the content, just by hitting the like button, it will recommend you or recommend others to what you watched, because they may see a certain pattern in your videos, and it might introduce them to the pub, and they might go like, wow, this is great. I haven't seen this person before. Somebody who is very weirdly obsessed with doomers. I'm liking this guy. It's great. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. Thanks for the short stream. I streamed for like 2.5 hours. That's what the Alpha's Hours was supposed to be. Good night, y'all. It'll be sad to find you someone to pass you on to.